It's the Brian Lehrer Show on WNYC. I'm Tiffany Hansen, filling in for Brian today. Well, there is a lot of budget talk these days. The New York State budget was finalized, finally. The New York City budget is due at the end of the month, as is New Jersey's state budget, and governors, mayors, legislators all hashing this out. Did you know that you have a say in how some of the city money gets spent? Voting is open now for deciding how to spend, quote, the people's money. It's part of a citywide participatory budgeting process that's been going on since last fall, but now is the time to cast your ballot. This process comes from the New York City Civic Engagement Commission, or the CEC. We're joined now by Sayeed, the chair and executive director of the CEC, and Yazmany. I had it right when we were off air, and here I am now messing it up. Yazmany Arboleda.
That's right.
I did it. Okay, Yazmany Arboleda, who is an artist, educator, community organizer, who is the CEC's designated people's artist. Welcome to both of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
To be here.
Thank you. All right. So, Sarah, I just want to talk about this process of participatory budgeting because I think it's confusing to some people. So if you can just help us delineate a little bit about, there's the overall budgeting process that most of us have no involvement. There is a part of the budgeting process that is a participatory budgeting. This is even separate from that. So can you just lay out a little bit how these are all differentiated from each other?
Sure. I just want to first begin by thanking you for having us on the show to talk about a less told story, which is about participatory budgeting.
Absolutely.
And also want to just acknowledge that the listeners of this show are probably super civically engaged anyway. And as we are listening and you are listening to this show, I encourage you to think about the people in your network and the family members that you have and the friends that you have, the neighbors that you have, because to support civic engagement, relationships are really important. And so I want you to be thinking about how you can share this story with the community. So the reason why we're here today is that the Civic Engagement Commission was created by voters in 2018 with a mandate to strengthen civic engagement and strengthen democracy in New York City. And participatory budgeting was part of that mandate, citywide participatory budgeting in particular. And as you mentioned, there is participatory budgeting. People may be familiar with that. City Council has been doing that for some time now. How this process is different is that we are a citywide process. When council members run citywide, when they run participatory budgeting, it is opt-in. So not every council member does it. That means that there are many council districts, probably about half, that are not doing participatory budgeting through the city council. Their process also focuses on building things, whether it's parks or cultural centers, and our process is more focused on programs and services. And the other thing that makes this process different is that people see the results of their participation within a year. So all the projects that are selected through this process will get implemented in a year.
Whereas the process of participatory budgeting with a specific council member might take
2 or more years.
2 or more years.
Yeah.
Is the purpose of this really, truly just civic, not just, but civic engagement?
It is. It's a very important pathway and opportunity, doorway to civic engagement, if you will. It is New York City's widest on-ramp to democracy, as we call it, because anyone 11 years and older can participate in this process regardless of their citizenship or immigration status. And it is giving New Yorkers a direct say on how to spend $4 million, which is different from, voting for a representative who makes a decision for you. This is New Yorkers directly voting. We take their votes and the most popular projects get implemented.
Okay, you mentioned that for the most part, the participatory budgeting that is led by specific council members is really about building stuff.
Yes.
So
correct.
what do we see in terms of initiatives? Can you highlight a few that are, that are a part of this participatory budgeting? In other words, what's the difference between the two? And just maybe highlight a few, give some examples for folks.
Yeah, I can talk about a few examples of projects that we've done in the past. For example, there was a project that had home repair liaisons for older adults, right? And this was a youth entrepreneur, workforce development kind of program that taught young people how to do things like put up picture frames or repair appliances in the home, paint the walls so that they could in turn help older adults. That kind of project wouldn't be covered under the city council process because it's not a capital or building something specific. We also have programs for mental health, providing counseling, providing workshops.
And are these on the ballot now?
Correct.
Okay.
These are some of the kinds of projects that are on the ballot now. So people are voting on their borough ballot, and in every borough there are projects that relate to health and well-being, youth development, projects for older adults, people with disabilities. So there are different types of projects that are on the ballot that were actually all the ideas came from New Yorkers. And you mentioned that this process started in the fall. New Yorkers proposed the ideas, and then we had assemblies in each borough of New Yorkers who selected which projects would go on the ballot, and now New Yorkers get to decide what will get funded.
I want to talk to you more about that, but I also want to invite our listeners into the conversation. If you have some questions for the folks with the Civic Engagement Commission, have you participated in this allocating of the people's money here in the last year or in the last 3 cycles? You want to tell us about that? You can call us. You can text us 212-433-9692. Do you have a question about how to participate? Call us 212-433-WNYC. That's 212-433-9692. And yes, we're talking with Sarah Sayeed, who is the chair and executive director of the CEC, that's the New York City Civic Engagement Commission, and Yazmany Arboleda, who is, I did it right that time, who is an artist, educator, and community organizer, who is the CEC's designated People's Artist. So, Yazmany, what is the role of the People's Artist?
For me, from the very beginning, I was really interested. I began my work at the Civic Engagement Commission in 2020 as the public artist in residence for the agency, coming through a program that was designed and built by the Department of Culture here in New York, with the idea that artists embedded inside of city agencies could help transform those agencies through bold thinking that comes through being an artist. And so from the very beginning, for me, the work was to think about how do we make democracy more like honey, sticky, sweet, delicious, embodied. I think so often a bureaucracy and our systems are plagued by prioritizing intellect, and I think it's really critical that we really think about our full selves as human beings. And one of the things that was beautiful from the beginning was that Dr. Sayeed really believes that democracy exists in the brain, but also prioritizing the heart. And so it was really thinking through, gosh, how does this city agency come about and create meaningful relationship with residents? Because the mandate for the agency is to do our work in collaboration with all New York City residents. And so to think through our programs and make decisions accordingly. I found early on that things like the language we use to talk about the work, for example, the words participatory budgeting, for me sound like chewing cardboard, not super compelling. How do we make it more delightful and joyful? And so it's really about people and money. And early on, our first project, actually, the first year was with high school students. We used $100,000 in 2020, and the youth called the program Eats Our Money. So eventually it becomes known as the People's Money, because we wanted to give folks the notion that they could participate, that it's ours to decide, it's ours to create, to co-create. And that's a huge part of my art practice. How do we work together to build the world we need for ourselves? In collaboration, really practicing the muscles of interdependence.
How else do you see, what I'm hearing is bringing a notion, bringing a little bit of creative thinking to this. How do you see that in some of these initiatives that are now on the ballot?
Well, it's really beautiful when you think about what Dr. Sayeed mentioned, the work of getting seniors support, technological support or otherwise, and to do job training of young people to be able to make that happen and in the process build these meaningful relationships that are cross-generational. So powerful. I think that we need to think about all of the challenges that we're facing as a society, and specifically here in New York. There's so many different types of challenges that we have across communities, and to give people the capacity to not just vote and decide which ones get funded, but to begin with, to name what the challenges are. I think that from the very beginning in our idea generation process, that is the first part of this, the first phase of our program, essential that folks understand that like all kinds of people can come to the table with their challenges and advocate for those challenges, so that in the end these programs are being funded around $200,000 for a year's worth of program. And that to me is a significant investment into the evolution of any nonprofit or any organization that's really trying to make a difference in their communities.
Yeah, we're talking about these initiatives that are on the ballot, and you alluded to it a little bit here, Sarah, but tell us again how these come to the ballot. What's the process here of getting these, all of these creative ideas that Yazmany is talking about to the ballot, and then how the community weighs in? Just a little, pull the curtain back on process a little bit.
So first I want to just mention, you were talking about how do people vote. You can go to learn more about the CEC and to vote. You can go to nyc.gov/CEC. The ideas are coming to us during the fall sessions. We set up with community-based organizations all around the city, and we have what are called idea generation sessions, where small groups of people, between 20 to 30 people, are coming together and discussing what are our community needs and what are the solutions that we want to see to these community needs. So it's a co-creative process of really talking together, and it's really, if you think about it, the promise of democracy is we come together in a room, we talk about what our problems are, we come up with shared solutions, and that's what these idea generation sessions do. Residents propose ideas, and then we got over 10,000 ideas. We can't put 10,000 ideas on the ballot, so we have to go through them and figure out what can be listed, and we use different criteria to decide what is going to go on the ballot, and one of those is just like to take out projects that might be, for example, capital project ideas, right? Building things. We wouldn't want to include that in this process.
Fixing something.
Exactly.
Like a pothole or, yeah.
Exactly. Those kinds of projects wouldn't be in here. And then in the second part of the process, we have what are resident borough assemblies. For each borough, people are randomly selected to participate. Again, 20 to 25 people per borough that represent the borough. They come together for about 20 hours to discuss all of these different ideas and narrow them down. And we list around 10 ideas per borough that people can then vote on. So, there's a process of funneling down the ideas so that it's manageable. People can make choices on the ballot on the 10. And then that's what people will see on their borough ballot. So when you go onto the website to vote, you will enter your zip code, and that will bring in the borough ballot for you where you live.
Listeners, we're talking about participatory budgeting with guests from the Civic Engagement Commission. Do you have a question about it? How to participate? Some ideas? 212-433-9692. You can call us. You can text us at that number. And let's talk with Paul in Washington Heights. Hi, Paul.
Oh, good morning, and thank you for taking my call. I have idea number 10,001.
Let's hear it.
So it's always troubled me as I walk around my neighborhood that there are perfectly good pieces of furniture put out on the sidewalk, and I'm sure that's true in many other neighborhoods. And I think it would be a wonderful program if people could be trained to pick up this furniture, repair it, and then make it available, say, to homeless people who are just starting their apartments, or somehow get it distributed and recycled for good use.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Paul. Appreciate that. Yazmany, that sounds like creative thinking.
Yeah, Paul, you know what you're making me think of, Paul? It's materials for the arts. It's a warehouse in Queens that technically takes all kinds of things that people think of as garbage, but in fact are things that are misplaced, that could be have a different home or a different place to be useful. And Materials for the Arts has been a partner with us, with the Civic Engagement Commission, since the People's Money began, because we use all kinds of resources from the warehouse to create many of the materials that we use for marketing and communications about the people's money specifically. I will tell you that one of the mascots of the agency is the Sunny. They're yellow sunshine sentinel little creatures that move around the city. We've created more than 400 of them that are about 9 inches tall, and these sculptures invite New Yorkers to participate. But what's special about them was that they were crafted. They were made by head of household immigrant mothers that helped create the campaign for the People's Money last year. I named this also because this year, for the first time, the CEC has partnered with 5 cultural institutions, one in each borough, that are serving as civic anchors and in-person voting sites. And so in Brooklyn, folks can vote at Brick Arts Media. In Queens, it's Flushing Town Hall. In the Bronx, it's the Bronx Museum of the Arts. In northern Manhattan, it's El Museo del Barrio. And then in Staten Island, we have Snug Harbor. These partnerships are really embedded in civic participation spaces that New Yorkers already trust and love. And we're really excited about bringing in, again, to me, when I think about democracy in this moment, it's really about how we take care of each other.
And these locations that you just mentioned are voting locations.
That's right.
And your Sunnies,
That's right.
which I had a question here about your Sunnies. So these is that what's on your shirt here? So they're little sort of humanoid-looking, sunshiny, happy creatures.
They are, and I think one of the things that's really critical about their aesthetic is that they are hard-forward and they're optimistic yellow. In our minds, really, these are embodiments of the values of the agency, and we aspire to really invite New Yorkers of all ages to engage. It's part of the modalities of engagement that
and
we've
people
created.
will see these Sunnies at these locations that you're talking about.
That's right. And in fact, on Sunday, we're going to be at Queens Pride with our large-scale Sunnies. They're twin Sunnies that are about 12 feet tall.
Oh,
and
yes.
Their names are Civic and Engagement. Their pronouns are, they were born at Queens Pride in 2024 on June 2nd. So they're Geminis. But these twins go around the city inviting New Yorkers to, again, learn about participatory budgeting and all the different programs that are really enabling our communities to have more health and collective beauty.
Let's bring another caller into the conversation, Sarah. How about Sue in Brooklyn? Hi, Sue.
Hi. So I was saying that my granddaughter's almost 11, and she's pretty intelligent and aware of what's going on. She was telling me about she was having a political argument with some of her colleagues a couple of weeks ago, and I was wondering, is there any kind of a program that exists that can engage? You said 11 and over, that can engage these kids through the schools, through something, that there's a way for them to be participant?
Sarah?
Yep.
Thank you, Sue.
New York City public schools are actually also running their own participatory budgeting process. So students can get involved in that. And what I want to say here is that, you're asking a broad question about how young people can get involved. And we also want to talk about civic engagement in a broader framework, because a lot of people, when they think about it, connect it with voting, and that's very important, right? At the same time, if we want to change our culture of democracy and build more engagement, we have to create other avenues for people to participate. Participatory budgeting is one of those processes. For people who are younger than 11, there are so many other opportunities for you, right? You can go and volunteer in your community. You can be part of a community cleanup. You could be part of a mural painting project. You can even help out in your school or in your church. These are all considered civic engagement activities.
You are listening. Just going to take a quick break here to say you're listening to WNYC FM HD and AM New York, WNJT FM 88.1 Trenton, WNJP 88.5 Sussex, WNJY 89.3 Netcong, and WNJO 90.3 Toms River. This is New York and New Jersey Public Radio, and we are live streaming at WNYC.org. Sarah, I just want to talk about voting because, Yazmany, you mentioned these locations. Two things. One, for folks who are like, wait, I didn't catch that. Where can they get the info? And then follow-up question is, if they can't get to those locations, how else can they vote? Mm-hmm.
Yes. Voting is available online. So going onto the site nyc.gov/CEC will get you to the ballot. You can also find locations for where you can vote in person by again, going onto our site, or you can go directly to participate.nyc.gov, which has a map of where these locations are. There are over 80 locations where you can go vote in person. We do want to encourage people to vote online. That's one of our goals for this year's campaign, is to increase online voting as well. And it's very easy to do it. You just need to, use your phone or be on the computer, and takes less than 5 minutes.
What's the thinking behind having folks do it? It's easy and they can participate, and it's a great way to boost civic engagement. Or, because I'm thinking back to what Yazmany was, I think it was you, was saying, how great it is to have people come together in a room and talk about this stuff. So what is the thinking behind the online voting?
I think, we live in an online era.
We do. We
do. And we definitely want to, encourage civic participation in a variety of forms. And because we live in a digital age, online voting is very important. And we are providing opportunities for people to come together and have conversations in other parts of the process. So voting itself is more of an individual level activity, though it could potentially be a group activity. But I guess we want to honor the process of people expressing their individual preferences.
Is there information on the website also for how folks can get involved the next time it comes around? Earlier on in the process, to your point about getting involved earlier on in the process.
Yes.
So that's all. And repeat the website again.
It's nyc.gov/CEC. So if people have ideas, like Paul had an idea, Paul can actually submit that idea, and we welcome that idea to be submitted for next year's process.
Okay. For this year, we're talking, I think you said $4 million. We're talking about
Correct.
$4 million. How is that amount decided upon? And is it a sliding scale? This year it's $4 million. Next year it's whatever.
Well, I'll say one thing.
Yeah.
I think it's important that listeners know that the participatory budgeting as such was created in Brazil in the late 80s. And actually, it's practiced all over the world. But I think it's important to understand that places like Paris, for example, they devote 100 million euros to their annual participatory budgeting program, and they actually, in fact, have less participation than we do with our $4 to $5 million that are allocated annually. I think it's important to know this because I think we, as an agency, the Civic Engagement Commission was created in 2018, and we're just on our 4th cycle, moving into our 5th cycle in the fall. But I think we've been able to do so much with the very limited resources we have to operate with.
Yeah, I think it's subject to appropriation. So there's right now we're baselined at $4 million. There is an opportunity. We hope that with more people participating and over time, that amount will grow. And it also, it's important to say that in a city of our size of 8.5 million people, it is important to grow that participation and to grow the dollar amount that we are investing in this process. So we are certainly have been since day one working with the Office of Management and Budget and also the Mayor's Office to ensure that this process gets legs and continues to grow.
Is there a correlation between the response seen by, I'm waving my hand, the powers that be, and the dollar amount? In other words, wow, we had X number of people participate in this budgeting process. We'd better allocate more money for this next time.
I think there could be, and there ought to be.
Yeah,
and I think administrations change. So our job as the Civic Engagement Commission, we are embedded in the charter, so we're not an office that's going to go away. We're working with every administration to let them know about what our office is doing, and I think it's important to just zoom out a little bit on this conversation. Why does the CEC exist? Government does engagement all the time, right? And I think it's important to acknowledge we're in a moment in which people have questions, if not questions, then skepticism and cynicism about how democracy works. And in 2018, people decided to vote for an office in government to strengthen democracy in New York City, right? So the investment in participatory budgeting, the investment in community engagement is actually an investment in democracy. And we need to shore up, not only shore up, but revive democracy and really connect to people, as Yazmany was saying, at the heart level to reorient kind of people to the meaningfulness of participating and how they can help make our city better by getting involved in processes like the People's Money.
I just want to name also, Dr. Sayeed, that I think it's really important for folks to understand that when we think about the Civic Engagement Commission, overseeing the rebranding of the agency over the last few years, for me, it was really critical that we look at the history of the city and specifically to be inspired by folks like Keith Haring and Jean-Michel Basquiat. Keith Haring specifically because he's somebody who died of AIDS inside of a construct and a society that didn't have the resources and the capacity to take care of his well-being. And so when we think about recognizing the harm government has done historically and the challenges it has faced, we are an agency that's available to have those conversations and to acknowledge those limitations in order to be able to create a way forward that is holistic and that really focuses on, gosh, what is our collective well-being? How do we come to design systems that are going to take care of people who are the most vulnerable in our society? I think these bigger questions are really at the heart of how we design these processes, and that's why art and culture is essentially a part of the operating system that we're building together.
Last question, Sarah. What would you say to the cynic New Yorker who says, it doesn't matter what I think. I don't see how I can change anything.
I would say that your participation is like oxygen to a body. I think democracy is a living, breathing thing, and the definition of democracy is people participating and shaping government. And I don't think there's an option for people to sit out. I think if you're not at the table, as they say, your voice is...
You're on the menu?
You're on the menu, right? And I think that there are a variety of ways people can participate, and just want to encourage that there might be, most people have really focused on voting as a way to engage. And I think a lot of the disenchantment of democracy and my voice doesn't matter is really coming from that avenue where people vote for elected officials who haven't always delivered for what they want. And I think just broaden the scope of how you're getting engaged in community. And I promise you that when you get more involved and you reinvest some of that time, you will find that connection is going to be meaningful for you, and you will make a difference. And you'll be able to see the difference very concretely at your community level.
We've been talking with Sarah Sayeed, who is the chair and executive director of the CEC, and we've been talking with Yazmany Arboleda, who is the people's artist. I think we're going to have to leave it now, but thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you so much for having us.